the day that I was going to take my life, I was on a plane going from Atlanta to LAX. Made a plan to take my life. I had enough pain pills to do it. I had a very specific plan, and it was crazy. So I had this check in my pocket from the scene that I just did, and it was driving me crazy. And it was just like really big, thick payroll check, and it was just like I don't know. And I took it out and I was looking at it and I was like, man, I can't let this go to waste. And if I put it in my account and I take my life, at least someone will get this money. Hopefully my mom. And I go to this bank and almost I went to the bank thinking, okay, I can get some additional motivation to harm myself if I go through the teller line and hand the check to a person because on the check, like on the memo of the check, it said what it was for.
Mm.
That like the title of the movie or the type of scene it was. And I thought, well, if I hand that to a person, because normally I would just go like Dropbox or ATM or whatever. I didn't want to have an interaction with a person. Like, here's this check for me, prostituting myself. But on this day, I did it on purpose so that at minimum she would give me like a dirty look or maybe say something because I was looking just when you get to the point where like suicidal ideation has become so extreme where you're making a plan to do it, often people will say, okay, here's the deal, if this happens I'm going to do it, but if this doesn't happen I'm not.
Okay.
For me, I was like, okay, if she gives me a dirty look, if she says something to me, like that's going to be the motivation I need to push myself over the edge. And then at this point in my life, like so isolated from everything and everyone, like I hadn't talked to my mom in like almost a year. I stopped answering her calls or texts. I stopped talking to my friends. So no one in my life was calling me Joshua. Like only my stage name existed. I had stopped interaction with anyone because I was so ashamed. And if people really care about you, they'll reach out to you and say, "Hey, uh, Joshua, what are you doing with your life? I love you. You're better than this. There's other things that you could be doing.
Mhm.
Like, please come home. Please stop doing this. Like do something else, please." And when you hear that, you either say, you know what, you're right. Like, I want to change, or you push that person away.
Yep. Yep.
So I pushed everyone away and I only had people patting me on my back while I was hating my life every second of the way. And I go into this bank, sarcastically slide the check across the counter and just waiting for her to say something. And instead of her saying something crass or sarcastic, she looks me in the eye and says, Joshua, do you need something? Joshua, are you okay? And because she could see, uh, I guess, the pain and the desperation in my face. And I feel that she was prompted by the Holy Spirit to do that.
Mm.
And instead of taking my life, I ended up running for my life. I ran and called my mom and had a really tough conversation, but she said the same thing she'd been saying. I love you. You're better than this. Please come home. So that day, I called my agent, my PR person. I called everyone. I quit. I quit. I quit. I'm out of here. And I run home. But then I tried to stack enough good on my dirt to cover it up. And, I like covered up tattoos. I shaved my head. I deleted social media. I did everything I could to kind of separate myself from the person I used to be and cover up the things that I did. But I couldn't cover it up. 1,000 films, thousands and thousands of pieces of content all over the internet. I was just one Google search away from getting found out everywhere I went. And
Yeah.
I just lived my life just in this really sad, I've lied to everyone until I got found out. I would keep the lie going as long as I could. I would lie about everything about my life until I got found out. And then I would just try to sort out the pieces. But all the while, I'm working at a gym, start having some success in the gym because I still have the same mindset. Like, well, if I'm in the gym industry and I'm going to be a trainer, I'm going to be the best trainer. I'm going to get all these certifications. I'm going to make the most money. I'm going to be so successful. I'm going to become, the head trainer. And I did. Um, I became successful in that industry, and even though I was now doing a good thing, I wasn't doing porn anymore. I still felt the same way,
Yeah.
and I was working at this gym. It was a CrossFit gym, and this girl walks in, and she's gorgeous, and I thought I was going to be smooth, and I walk up to her like after the workout. I'm like, hey, I can put your equipment away for you. She's like, I can do it myself. Okay. Well, I was like, well, I would love, there's this incredible Italian place downtown, and I would love to take you to dinner. She's like, I'm okay. Like,
Oh my gosh.
man, I was like, rejection. I was like, I'm in love. I'm in love with you.
Oh,
But she said, well, you can come running with me if you want. And
okay.
I was like, sure, I'll take what I can get.
Yeah.
And I met her to go for a run, and I got there a little bit early. We're going to meet at a park to run, and I'm waiting on her to get there, and then I almost like hear my mom's voice in my head was like, "Don't you lie to that girl! Don't
Oh,
you dare lie to that girl!"
wow.
And I was like, it's probably a good idea because I'd hurt so many people by like not telling them. I would try to like start relationships or friendships or different things, and I would withhold that information. It would come out, and it was messy. Hurt myself, hurt other people, and I was just like, man, I'm just sick of being rejected. I'm sick of lying to people. I'm just going to tell you the truth. So I was like, hey, there's something I gotta tell you before we start this run. And I told her everything.
Wow.
And she was like, whoa, like she was pretty taken back by it. And then she looked at me and got real serious. And she's like, a person's not defined by the worst thing they've ever done. And a person's not defined by the greatest thing they'll ever do either.
Wow.
There's an author of life, there's a creator of you and me, and he defines you. Do you know who God is? And I lived my entire life, not knowing who I was, not thinking that I was good enough. But what I was really good at is becoming whoever I thought you wanted me to be so that you would like me.
Yeah.
So that's what I tried to do in that moment. It's like, sure, I know who God is, like this and that. And then she was like, well, what's your relationship with Jesus like? Where do you go to church? Where, are you in a community anywhere? And I was like, whatever you're talking about, I have no, I have no idea. Like whatever you're saying, I don't have that.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I have been following Jesus since I was in the seventh grade. All of my family are Christian, and I'm not perfect by any means. I've got plenty of mistakes, but my relationship with Jesus is the foundation of my life. So, do you like tacos, or what kind of food do you like? What are your hopes and dreams? I was like, whoa,
Oh
what?
my gosh.
What? I was
Wow.
like, I just told you the truth, and that's your response, and you still want to know about me? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, God sent that woman.
Yeah. I was like, "What?" And then, we text like crazy for a week, and then she invites me to church, and I go, and I remember walking to church, and there was this giant, wooden plaque that said, "We wanna love people where they are and encourage them to grow in their relationship with Jesus Christ," and I was like, "Jesus sounds cool, but there's no chance that
Mm,
I belong here."
yeah.
And the pastor gets up, and he starts sharing this message about Jonathan and David. And when Jonathan died, historically, this is a story in First Samuel, but historically, when a king died and a new king took over, that previous kingdom was wiped out. Everyone in that family was killed because they didn't want anyone to think they had access to the new kingdom. But David was different, and he said, hey, is there anyone left out of Jonathan's family? They were dear friends. Is there anyone left? And his, his guard. So yeah, Mephibosheth is the only person left, and his guards go, and Mephibosheth knew history. He knew what had happened, and he was expecting to be killed, but instead, David's guards didn't extend a spear; they extended a hand, and they brought him back into David's kingdom, and even restored his land and gave him a place in the kingdom. And the pastor says, "You see how Mephibosheth was expecting death because of his history." You see, Romans 3:23 says that we've all sinned and fall short of the glory of God. And Romans 6:23 says the wages of that sin, the cost of that sin is death, eternal separation from God. We are separated from God and don't have the ability to reconcile ourselves to God. We can't meet, we can't build a bridge to get to God. We don't have the ability because we're imperfect because of our sin. So, what are we to do? Well, Jesus, God sends his son into this world. Um, Jesus Christ, being fully God and fully man, born of a virgin, he lives the perfect life, never sins. He dies on the cross, and on the third day he rises, and he solidifies he is who he claimed to be: Son of God, the Messiah, the one who takes away the sins of the world. And through putting your faith in Jesus, his righteousness, his perfection is now bestowed upon you. And you can be made right with God because of who Jesus is and putting your faith in him.
Yeah.
And I was like, I hear you, but this doesn't make sense to me. And as I'm wrestling with God, as I'm feeling the Holy Spirit tug on my heart, like I didn't understand, why would Jesus die for me? And then he shares, it was with joy set before him that Jesus endured the cross. It was love for you and me and obedience to the Father that sent him to the cross. And what I realized in that moment was that the Father that I was so desperate to have, I had. And he was waiting on me with open arms. And he sent his son to die for me so that I could be reunited and in a right standing relationship with him, not because I deserved it, not because I was good enough, but because he loved me that much. And it changed everything for me.